Thank you, Matt. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this special edition for the first part of our meeting of Coffee Talk. Before I get into introducing our guest, I just kind of wanted to go over a review of our year this past year. We had a very successful year. We had successfully introduced legislation, and it was signed and passed, and that is the predatory wholesaler bill. So we're very proud of that work. We onboarded a new GAD and CFO. We grew our membership by 12%. Our books are very healthy. We're very stable. Our strategic plan, we are incorporating probably first of next year, I believe. That's coming together. We've incorporated innovative ideas, practices that we've learned throughout this pandemic that will be the framework for our future. So we are poised for success. So this will be my last coffee talk as your president. A little bittersweet, but I'm so thrilled to have our guest. Before I introduce them, I just wanted to end my presidency as I began it each year at my inauguration. And as I do every day, I begin my days with gratitudes, and I pick 3 things that I'm grateful for. So this past year and past 2 years, I guess, my first gratitude would be the opportunity to serve as your president. It was an honor. With that came power, and with power comes responsibility, and you trusted me with that. You trusted me to speak and act on behalf of over 3,600 members of our realtor community, and I thank you for that. I'm also grateful for the people that I met along the way on this journey. Not only our board of directors, but our staff. They are incredible people. They dedicate their time and talent to grow this association, and for that, I'm grateful. And my third gratitude is your hospitality. Over the past couple of years, you have invited me into your homes, your offices, your cars, and even on your morning walk for a cup of coffee and good conversation. We were able to interview, talk with local leaders, council members, senators, industry leaders, everybody we could get our hands on. We had them front and center. And I was happy to bring that to you. I didn't do anything different than any other president before me. I just happened to be in a position and a time to give you that front row seat of the inner workings of our association and what we do every day consistently to advocate for you. So with that, I don't know if you follow me on social media, but I posted my very first meeting as the president in 2020, and you saw a book, and it was The Go-Giver Leader. It was a gift that I gave to all the board of directors, the co-chairs, chairs, and the staff. It kind of set the tone. Not only is it a great book, but it set the tone for the year of what we thought was going to be a very relatively easy year, but we were going to work on leadership. 2020 hit, then 2021, we had the Go-Giver Influencer. So I'm happy to have my last coffee talk with the author of that great book, Bob Burg, who is joining us today. The book has meant a lot to me, and I think a lot of our board members and co-chairs, the feedback that I received, they really enjoyed it. So I am so grateful and thankful. And I know Bob is somewhere around here. If I can find it. There he is. Hello. Good morning.
Stephanie.
Good morning. Well, welcome to Philadelphia. Welcome to GPAR. And I hope you have a nice cup of coffee because we're going to talk about some go-giving, right?
Absolutely. And congratulations to you for a wonderful year. You know, when we first began talking to Matt, he just sang your praises. And just, I know you've been a wonderful leader, and you will be fantastic in terms of transitioning to the next president. And it's going to be wonderful. So I congratulate all of you on a fantastic year, and may 2022 be even greater, or as we like to say, more betterer.
Betterer.
Shifting your focus. And this is, really where it all begins, shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others is not only a more pleasant way, a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's actually the most financially profitable way as well. Or is it? Is that just naive? I mean, isn't it a bit unrealistic to believe that in today's day of self-absorption, corporate scandals, and dog-eat-dog competition, that one can actually give their way to success? And that was basically Joe's first question. Joe was the protege, the protagonist in the original Go Giver book. That was his first question for his new mentor, a very wise and successful man by the name of Pindar. In other words, in the real world, not the world we wish it would be or should be or maybe even could be, but in the actual real world in which we live, isn't that just naive? Well, what Joe came to discover is that not only is it not naive, it's actually quite practical. It's very rational. Because when you think about it, when you're that realtor who can take your focus off of yourself and place it on serving others, on discovering what they want, what they need, what they desire, on helping them to solve and overcome their challenges, on helping them get closer to happiness, well, people feel good about you. People want to get to know you. They like you. They trust you. They want to be part of your life. They want to be in relationship with you. They want to do business with you when the need arises. And they want to tell others about you. They want to be your personal walking ambassador. We call these people who are other focused, we call them go givers. And they tend to be the most successful people financially, as well as the other areas in which success can be measured. We know success encompasses many different areas. There's financial, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional, social, relational, and probably a dozen other ways. Now, in the context of today's program, we're talking about financial and about how it relates to your business. So let's discuss, if we may, the 5 laws of what we call, my co-author, John David Mann, who was really he was the lead writer and storyteller of the parable. You'll find out about me. I'm how-to-ish. I'm step-by-step, right? John's a great writer. So without him, this book would not have been what it was. And so let's talk about the 5 laws of stratospheric success. Now, the first one is the law of value. And this one says your true worth, in the business sense, of course, your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. Now, when you first hear that, it sounds almost a little counterintuitive. Give more in value than I take in payment sounds all nicey nice and everything, but it also sounds like a recipe for bankruptcy. Give more in value than I take in payment. So what does that really mean? Well, it's understanding the difference between price and value. See, price is a dollar figure. It's a dollar amount. It's finite. It is what it is, right? Value, on the other hand, is the relative worth or desirability of a thing, of something, to the end user or beholder. In other words, what is it about this thing, this product, service, concept, idea, listing, what have you, that brings so much worth to another person that they will willingly exchange their money for this and be glad they did, while you make a very healthy profit? Now, as a realtor, of course, by the very nature of what you do, you give so much more in value than what you take in payment. So, we know, let's say we're talking about within the context of a listing, you take someone's listing. So what do? Well, I mean, on just a very basic level, you know that you're going to help them. So they're going to get a much higher price for their home. They're going to sell it in less time. And with your help, they're going to have much less aggravation than they ever would have been able to without your time, without your knowledge, without your wisdom, without your hard work, without your connections, and so forth. But it's more than that too. You're handling the staging and the advertising and the showings and the inspections and the negotiations. So by the time their home sells, okay, taking the commission or fee into consideration, you're giving them, they're receiving much more in value than what they're paying. You're giving them much more value than what you're taking in payment. So they come away feeling great about it, and you make a very healthy profit. In fact, in any free market-based situation, when I say free market, I simply mean no one is forced to do business with anyone else. People do it on their own volition. In this type of transaction, if you will, there should always be two profits. The buyer, in this case, the seller, but the person, your client, profits, and you profit because each of you, both the buyer and the seller, the customer and the entrepreneur, the realtor, both come away significantly better off afterwards than they were beforehand. Now, all that's fine. The value you provide, wonderful, terrific, fantastic, but not enough. And why is that? Because aside from you, there are lots and lots of other realtors who can promise and pretty much do about the same thing for that client. And unless that listed potential prospective listing client can distinguish between any two or more realtors, right? It's always going to come down to who has the lowest fee. And unless your last name is Walmart or Amazon.com, trying to make low price or low fee your unique selling proposition is not a good way to do business. It's not profitable. It's not rewarding. And it's certainly not sustainable. Right? When you sell on low price or low fee, you're a commodity. When you sell on high value, you're a resource. So the question is, when we're talking about dealing within a commodity like a house or a home, how do you separate yourself from the competition? How do you distinguish yourself from others? Well, first, the short answer is you become that additional value because that person is buying into you before they're buying into your company. So now the question becomes, how do you communicate that additional value, right? And the good news is that there are dozens, if not hundreds of ways to communicate additional value to a person. But they tend to come down to 5, what we call elements of value. And those elements of value are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation. Now, these are just within the law of value. The 5 laws of stratospheric success are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. We'll be getting to those. But these elements of value are simply those within the law of value itself. So let's start with excellence. Excellence is twofold. Excellence first is simply a matter of being great at what you do. Okay, that means you know your products, real estate, your farm. If you have a particular farm, that neighbor, that whatever it is you need to know, you're good. You are competent at what you do. You are excellent. But excellence also includes something else. And this is simply how you make people feel about themselves at every single touch point. So, when the phone is being answered, do you answer within an appropriate number of rings so they're not kept waiting? And I know you're busy. Sometimes it's difficult to do. Do you answer in a way that no matter how busy you are, you always make them feel as though they're the most important person in your life at this point, because they are? When you have to put them on hold, do you just say, hold, click, or do you say, may I put you on hold for a moment? I'll be right back, and then do it gently? Okay. Is there always time to do that? Well, no, but yes, that's excellence. It's often the way we greet someone. One of my personal favorite examples is the Ritz-Carlton hotel chain. When you walk into a Ritz-Carlton, the moment you're greeted by a guest contact employee, they'll never say, hey, hi, or how you doing? It's always good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending upon the time of day. When you need their help for something, not only will they put down what they're doing and devote their full attention on you, but when you say thank you, they will never respond with no problem. They won't even say you're welcome. They'll say my pleasure. And they'll do this every time, every person, no exceptions, no excuses. Now, one might say, well, wait a second, that's the Ritz-Carlton. I mean, they're the top of the line. They've got the training and they can do, you know what? Any other hotel, motel, international conglomerate, local mom and pop could do the same exact thing. Marriott, Hyatt, Westin, all fine properties. And they do that sometimes, but not all the time. Super 8 Hotel could do that. Motel 6, where Tom Bodette leaves the lights on for us. They could do that too. And you know who else could? Dave and Mary and their team of 3 people, right? Dave and Mary Stop and Stay In, right? They could do it too. Now, you might say, well, wait a second, Burg. Dave and Mary and their team of 3 people, they can say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and my pleasure till the cows come home. They ain't taking market share away from, Ritz-Carlton Hotel. Of course they're not. But they will absolutely own their targeted demographic and probably will take some share away from Motel 6 and maybe even Super 8, because they're that place that when you visit there, you feel welcome. You feel like you're the best thing that ever happened to them. And right? And so it's just like that. So we can do that. And we can apply that kind of excellence in our lives. Tom Peters, who wrote In Search of Excellence, he says, excellence is the next 5 minutes. Right? Excellence is that next email you send that you think about it before you send, right? That you word perfectly, or it's that next phone call. It's that next compliment you pay someone that someone else may not have done. Excellence is the next 1 minute. It's the next 5 minutes. Or he says it's nothing at all. And that's excellence. Excellence simply means, but it doesn't mean perfection. It means consciously bringing our best self to every interaction. Then there's consistency. Consistency is so important because in order to elicit trust, people have to know they can depend on us. It's not enough to just be excellent sometimes or even most of the time. In order to elicit trust, we must do the same thing and be the same person day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. So there's excellence and consistency. Then there's attention to detail. There's the old saying, don't sweat the small stuff. Richard Carlson wrote a whole bunch of books. Don't sweat the small stuff. And it's all small stuff. And most of the time that's true. Okay. We spill something or whatever. It's not a big deal. Don't sweat the small stuff. But as Harvey Mckay, multi-New York Times bestselling author, says, in business, those who sweat the small stuff get the sale. And he had a great example in his original book. This was written back in the 1990s. It was called Swim with the Sharks Without Being Eaten Alive. And he told the story of, he was and he still is, I believe, an envelope man. He owns the Mckay Mitchell envelope manufacturing company. And you talk about a product that is a commodity. As Harvey said, in the always exciting world of envelope manufacturing, there's not a whole lot that one envelope manufacturer can do that every other envelope manufacturer can't also do, right? So you'd think that their selling differentiation would have to be on price, right? I mean, what else is there? Yet that wasn't the case. Year after year, his salespeople outsold the competition, and they did so at high profitable margins. Why? Well, Harvey Mckay explained that the major reason for this was a tool he developed called the Mckay 66. Now, this is well before the age of the internet. So this was actually like a 2 or 3 page binder. And on this, all his salespeople had this binder that had 66 questions on it, which his salespeople were charged to find out before they ever asked for the sale. And it was just, most of it had nothing to do with the other person's company, the potential buyer's company. It was all about that person, their family, their recreation, their hobbies, their charities, the ages of the kids, where people grew up, sports, interest. And what happened was, by the time And by the way, it's not that every one of those pieces of information had to be filled in, but most of them were. And it's not that they took notes, they asked questions. No, that would not have worked. They had to find those out simply during regular conversations. Now, we could say, well, we have the internet now. We can find out most of that information beforehand. And that's a good point, by the way. And we should certainly research people to the degree we can, where it's appropriate, to do that. But it was never about the questions and the answers. It was about being the type of sales professional who cared enough about the other person to want to know the answers. And see, by the time they were ready to ask for the sale, this person was no longer, the prospect was no longer buying envelopes from an envelope salesperson. They were buying envelopes from someone who they knew, they liked, and they trusted. Someone who they know cared enough about them to be interested in them as more than just a prospect, but instead a person. So we ask ourselves the questions, how do we show that kind of attention to our new prospects, our new customers, our new clients? Attention, so very important. And then there's empathy. So there's excellence, consistency, attention, empathy. Well, empathy might be the most important people skill there is. Okay. And according to the dictionary, empathy is simply the identification with or vicarious experiencing of another person's feelings, right? Step into their shoes, which sounds great until you realize that most people have different sized feet. So it can be difficult to step into another person's shoes. We're not them. We don't know what they're thinking. We don't know what they're feeling because we all come from different sets of beliefs and different experiences. And so, with empathy, it might be that you're working, let's say, with a couple who wants to buy a home, a really nice home. And these people both have good jobs and they seem to be doing well. They look good and they smell good and everything seems, but you're noticing that as you're asking questions and some of them financial, as you're kind of pre-qualifying them a little bit, and look, there's some hesitation. And empathy doesn't say you understand what they're feeling. Remember, you do this all the time. You're a professional, you're a realtor, you're a professional. You do this every day. Well, most people maybe go through this once or twice or three times in their life, right? And so empathy says, I may not understand exactly how they feel, but I understand they're feeling something, and that this something is distressful to them. And I'm here to help them work through it. So empathy would say that you approach this with an I message. Now, this is not to be confused with being I focused. No, we want to be other focused, but we want to have use an I message, which puts the onus of the challenge on the confusion on ourselves. Okay. And we might say to them something like, it could be just me. I get the feeling that with some of these questions, it's causing some discomfort. And I just want to let you know that, I do this all the time and I've probably heard just about everything. And so just know that's exactly what I'm here for. My total goal is to help you get the home that you want. So I just want you to know, to feel welcome, to feel safe with asking me of any concerns. Right? So now what you've done is you've created the context where these people feel safe. Because remember, we don't know what they're feeling. They may not have they may be making great money, but spending too much. Or they may have grown up where the message from their family was, you don't talk about money with strangers. So it's just hard for them to, we don't know but as long as we understand they're feeling something and we can create a frame where they feel safe sharing with us, that's the power of empathy. And then there's appreciation. Appreciation simply means, and Stephanie was talking about gratitude and appreciation. And I love that topic because I truly believe that gratitude and appreciation is the one trait without which happiness is not possible. Because we could have all the blessings in the world. And I'm not talking about boats and jets. I'm talking about, being able to see, hear, feel, taste, touch, smell, have a roof over our head, be able to have a really nice, good hot cup of coffee, or having friends, or, whatever it happens to be. But if we don't appreciate it, it's the same as not having it. Now, what does that have to do with being an element of value? Gratitude is a very attractive trait. Those people who live with gratitude are more attractive to others. People want to be around people who live in gratitude. And it's not enough just to live in it, but we need to express it. We need to communicate it. That means we say thank you all the time whenever we can. That means we write texts and emails and handwritten notes, which we'll get to later on, that express to people our gratitude. It means that we always find a way not only to be grateful, but to communicate that gratitude. So these are the elements of value, okay, that set us apart, that distinguish us from others: excellence, consistency, attention.
Well, don't be running out too quick if you're...
And depreciation. And to the degree that we can communicate these elements of value at every touch point, from the moment we meet that person, whether it's an inbound call, whether it's outbound, or we've met them somewhere at an event or at an open house, or through the relationship building process, the follow-up and follow-through, the sales process, the referral process, to the degree that we can communicate those elements of value, that's the degree that we take fee and competition out of the issue. The next trait, so that's basically the law of value, right? The next law is the law of compensation. This says your income is determined by how many people you serve and how well you serve them. So where law number one says to give more in value than you take in payment, law number two tells us the more people whose lives you touch with the exceptional value you provide, the more money with which you'll be rewarded. Well, that just makes sense. You know, it's like Nicole Martin, one of the mentors in the story, told Joe, the protege, law number one, the law of value equals your potential income, but it's not enough to serve just one person or just a few. Law number two, she said, is all of that represents your actual income, because it's about how many lives you impact. So we could say exceptional value plus significant reach equals very high compensation. Law number three is the law of influence. And the law of influence says your influence is determined by how abundantly you place other people's interests first. Again, this sounds counterproductive at best, perhaps downright Pollyanna-ish at worst. Yet the greatest leaders, top influencers, most consistently, sustainably successful, highest money earning realtors, this is simply how they run their lives and conduct their businesses. Now, let me just qualify this for a moment, if I may, because this can be very easily misunderstood, and I believe it's very important. When we say place the other person's interests first, we certainly don't mean you should be anyone's doormat or a martyr or self-sacrificial, right? No way. We're simply saying, as Joe, the protege, learned from several of the mentors in the story, the golden rule of business, of sales, what have you, is simply that all things being equal, people will do business with and refer business to those people they know, like, and trust. And there's no faster, more powerful, or more effective way to elicit those feelings toward you from others than by genuinely moving from what we call an I focus or me focus to an other focus, looking to, as Sam, one of the mentors in the story, advised Joe, make your win all about the other person's win. Know, like, and trust, so important. We know people have to either know us or know who we are to do business with us. Do they have to like us? They probably don't have to, especially if we're the only one, in our marketplace. But since we're not, like is a good thing to have. But trust is really the key. And, we live in, I think, what could generally be called a low trust society at this point. Now, the good news about living in a low trust society, not that that's great, but there is good news about it. And that is that person, that realtor, who can very quickly communicate trust, their trustworthiness, their worthiness of being trusted. Well, that person's way ahead in the game. Trust is so very important. Stephen M.R. Covey, the son of Dr. Stephen Covey of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, wrote just such a great book called The Speed of Trust. And he talked about how trust is the one thing, he says, that changes everything, because when you have high trust, things happen fast. things are smooth. Okay. When you have low trust, no trust, lack of trust, well, that's when things have to be checked and rechecked and this and that. And it takes so long and it gets, so our biggest thing is communicating trust. So how do we do that? How do we do that quickly too when we first meet someone? Well, we quickly establish trust when we quickly establish value. How do we do that? Well, it shouldn't surprise you. We take our focus off of ourselves and place it on them. When I first, or soon after I got into sales, I was doing a lot of telephone work and I was prospecting on the phone. I was building relationships on the phone and I had to close sales on the phone. And here's something I learned very quickly. Nobody ever hung up the phone on me while they were talking. It was really quite an amazing thing, right? If I'm talking, they want to get off. If they're talking, they're engaged. They're staying on. Right? Hey, have you ever been in a conversation with someone who let you do practically all the talking? Didn't you kind of come away from that conversation saying to yourself, wow, what a fascinating conversationalist that person is? And it's so very true. And you can be the fascinating conversationalist. And it really comes down to just, again, moving your focus off yourself, placing it on them. So let's say you meet someone somewhere, and let's say this is in your local community. And by the way, it could be anywhere. It could be a party, a regular social function. It could be one of those business networking events sponsored by someone. It could be at a charity event. Okay. It could be at your kid's ball game or the PTA meeting. It doesn't matter. You can meet people anywhere. And as long as your focus is on them, it's amazing the kind of conversations you can have with people and how you can immediately communicate value to them. Let's just say in this case, you're at a charity event. Okay. And you meet someone at this charity event. There's a lot of good people there and you're at the hors d'oeuvres table and there's someone, his name, or you don't even know his name yet, but you make eye contact and he, look at each other and you say hi and he says hi and you put out your hand and you say, hi, I'm Bob Burg. Well, use your own name, of course. It works a lot better, but we'll use me in this case since I'm talking. And so you say, hi, I'm Bob Burg. And he says, oh, hi, Gary Malashevsky. And that's it. That's how you meet someone, right? Now you'd ask Gary, so what do you do, Gary? Or what line of work are you in? Perfectly legitimate question, right? And he says, well, I'm vice president of sales of Acme Office Products. We sell high-end copying machines to businesses that need to modernize and update their blah, 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 blah. He's giving you his elevator speech, because that's what people are trained to do. And that's okay. So we listen to it. But then he says, pardon me, I'm so sorry. Then he says, what do you do? Because that's what people do. Now, we might be tempted to say, well, I help people sell their successfully market their home and buy the home of their dream, and so forth. But don't do that. Don't do anything, elevator, anything, or even a benefit statement. Not right now, because remember, right now at this point in the conversation, this person's interest in you and in your work can be summarized in just 3 words. He doesn't care. Okay. He just doesn't care right now. Not now. So don't don't try to hit him up with any kind of big speech. He's doesn't care. It will have the opposite effect. Instead, go right back to him. And here's where we're going to focus. We're going to invest 99.9% of the conversation with him, asking questions about him and what he does. So now, again, he's vice president of sales, and he also is on the street salesperson for Acme Office Products. He sells copying machines. So what if we were to ask him some questions? Now, by the way, I call these feel-good questions. Feel-good questions. And I define feel-good questions simply as questions that simply make this person feel good about himself, about the conversation, and about you. These questions are not salesy, they're not prospecty, they're not intrusive, they're not invasive, but they very quickly develop a rapport and attract that person to you. I have 10 of them in my arsenal. You will never have time to ask all 10, nor should you, because if you did, it would totally turn him off. So all you're going to do is ask 2 or 3 at one time. But in a moment, we'll give you all 10 of them. But but you'll only ask a couple at a time. The first question to ask of Gary is simply this. Gary, how did you get started selling copying machines? A little bit more elegant way to ask might be, Gary, how did you get started as an office products professional? See, this is key because no one has ever asked Gary this question before, right? You know, I mean, it's not a particularly slick or clever question. How did you get started in the so-and-so business, right? But you're asking him to share his story. You're asking him to be the star. His own family has never asked him to share his story. And here's you, who he's just met. And instead of you trying to sell your hat like everybody else is doing, right? When they meet someone, you're focusing on him. You want to know his story, and he'll be glad to share it with you. And we listen actively, and we realize that most people really do have great stories when they're asked. The second question is sort of a follow-up to that. And it's, what do you enjoy most about what you do? Now it's going to come off more like, wow, you must have had some fascinating experiences, Gary. Tell me, what do you enjoy most about your work? Or what do you enjoy most about what you do? This, flies in the face of a lot of traditional sales teaching where we're taught to immediately find their pain, reach into their heart and tear it out so we can come to the rescue with our terrific products and services. No, right now, first of all, he doesn't know you well enough to go sharing his horrible, experiences, but also he may not even be a prospect for you right now or for the next couple of years, but he may know plenty of people who are. So right now, we simply want to have him associate us with good feelings, okay? And so we want to ask questions that make them feel good about himself. So rather than finding his pain, find his joy. What do you enjoy most about what you do? So much better, by the way, than taking the opposite tack. Okay, so Gary, tell me, what do you just hate most about your work, right? And while we're at it, how about this wretched excuse for a life you live, right? Not exactly feel-goody by nature. So no, we want to ask questions that make them feel good about themselves. Now, you've asked a couple of these questions. It's time to ask what I call the one key question that will separate you, that will distinguish you from everyone else, and truly attract this person to wanting to get to know you and what you do better. And again, this question is really only to be asked after those first couple of questions, and you can tell the rapport has started to become built. And that is, Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good client for you? Or how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good customer for you? Or how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospect for you? However it would be more, okay? So Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good customer for you? By the way, a little bit more elegant way of asking that question would be to say, Gary, I always love connecting good people with other good people. How can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospective client for you? Now, what have you done when asking that question? Well, a couple of things. One is you've continued to be focused on him, which no one else is like that. And you're continuing to show him how much you value him right from the start. But also the way you frame that question, his answer is actually going to help you to help him, which he understands and realizes and appreciates. Look, let's run through this, right? He sells copying machines. Gary, how can I know if someone I'm speaking with is a good prospective customer or client for you? And he says, well, if you're ever in an office and you notice a copying machine, and next to that copying machine is a waste paper basket. And next to that waste paper basket is absolutely filled to the rim and overflowing with crumpled up pieces of paper. That's a good sign that copying machine's been breaking down a lot lately. And that would be an excellent prospect for me. So Gary has just shown you, he's told you how to go about finding value, looking for value, adding value to his life. So you've had this brief conversation. It maybe took 3 to 5 to 7 minutes, what have you. And, the two of you are going to end the conversation. You'll move on. Maybe you'll meet someone else and you'll do the same thing. You can have that same conversation with as many people as you'd like. But I'll just, so again, I have 10 questions, and you can ask any 2 or 3 during any conversation. I believe Matt or Stephanie, someone might be putting them up in the chat. I'm not sure, but if not, just it's www.burg.com/10Q for 10 questions, and just go there. You can just hit enter, print them out, memorize them if you like, just so that you feel comfortable with them, and ask whichever ones you deem appropriate. But I'll just suggest, if you were to only use those first 2, how did you get started and what do you enjoy most about what you do, plus the one key question, that will absolutely be a game changer for you. Okay. So let's say that's the only person you met, or you've met a few others. Now you move on, and what you're going to do is, to me, one of the most effective things you can do is send a personalized handwritten note as the first aspect of the follow-up. And what I do is I send them handwritten 8.5 by 3 inches, though you can do whatever you'd like. It's on 80 to 90 pound cardstock, so it's heavier than and you simply write a personalized handwritten note to that person. Hi, Dave, or hi, Gary, or dear Mary, or dear Ann, or hi, Mr. Johnson, or hello, however the relationship's been established. And you simply write, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. If I can ever refer business your way, I certainly will. Best regards, and sign your name. Or let's say you met Ann at your kid's ball game, and you had a great, pleasant conversation. And the note might be, hi, Ann, it was such a pleasure. Thank you. It was such a pleasure meeting you yesterday at the kids' ball game. I thought your Sally and my Tommy were the 2 best out there, smiley face, what have you. And best regards. And then put it in a number 10 envelope. Hand address, and by the way, write it in blue ink, because blue ink comes across as original. It couldn't have been copied. It's blue ink, so it's obvious that you wrote it. Put it in a regular envelope, handwrite the name and address, again, blue ink. Put a regular stamp or a commemorative stamp, not a postal stamp, not a I'm trying to think of the word, I can't think of it, but
postal meter.
Yeah, not a meter. You're right. Not a meter. Thank you. Not a meter stamp, a regular stamp, because you want it to be coming from a friend, not it, right? And you send it out. This person gets it, and right away they take this out and they see it, and they see your picture, because you want to have your picture on it, because remember, people think in pictures. Notice, by the way, there's plenty of room to write. You're going to have your name, your address, your contact information. Have a brief benefit statement at the top or bottom. A benefit statement's not an elevator speech. A benefit statement is simply a very short, other-focused, benefit-oriented statement. So it might be, depending on your niche, it might be helping people successfully sell their homes and own the home of their dreams. Or if you work a certain niche, it might be that. But the big thing is have your picture on it. That's very important. And make sure there's plenty of room to write, because it's not a direct response piece. It's a thank you note. And that's all it is. Here's what it says to this person when you do. There's an old saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. And what it says to that person when they get this note from you, they see your picture, the warm, fuzzy feelings come back. But the letter itself is not a solicitation. All it's saying is, thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you. If I can ever refer business your way, I certainly will. They see you as someone who is professional, someone who is competent, someone who knows their stuff. And obviously, if you're willing to follow up after one conversation like that, wow, you're a professional and you're someone they have confidence in. Now, there's a whole bunch more in terms of the follow through and the follow up that really establish you as their go-to person. Instead of taking all the time to get into that, I've put together I think it's 22 videos. They're about 3 minutes each, so they're not long at all. But it takes you from actually the first few are what we've already gone through, and then the last couple will be on actually how on the referral aspect. But the rest of them are all on how to follow up and follow through in such a way that you easily and powerfully position yourself as that go-to person. So I believe Matt is going to put that put that up there. There's also one other thing. If you would like to take a look at this so that you can use it as a template for yours, go to Burg, BURG.com /note card. And again, you can just use mine, model it however you'd like, and then take it to your personal printer. So that's really the law of influence, right? And so now we're going to go to the law of authenticity. This is the fourth law. So remember, we've had the law of value, the law of compensation, the law of influence, now the law of authenticity. This simply says the most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. And in this part of the story, the mentor was Deborah Davenport. She was the very successful realtor, and she shared a very important lesson. And that is that all the skills in the world, the sales skills, technical skills, people skills, as important as they are, and they are all indeed very, very important, they're also all for naught if you don't come at it from your true, authentic core. But when you do, when you show up as yourself, day after day, week after week, month after month, people feel good about you. They feel comfortable with you. They feel safe with you. And why wouldn't they? They know who they're getting. So important. Now, I think in a sense, there's a big misunderstanding today about what authenticity is. I think a lot of people think authenticity simply means we have no boundaries. Say whatever you feel like saying because that's authentic, and if people don't like it, too bad. Which, by the way, is a good philosophy if you don't want to have any healthy relationships or a successful business. But assuming that's not what we want, no, that's not what authenticity means at all. Authenticity, by definition, is simply acting congruently with your values. That's authentic. Authenticity doesn't mean that you don't try to improve yourself and continue to grow. You know, it's sort of like the person who says, well, I have anger issues and I yell at people a lot. And if I were to act any differently, that wouldn't be authentic of me. And of course, that's baloney. That's malarkey. It simply means this person has an authentic problem that he needs to authentically work on in order to become a better, higher, more effective, authentic version of himself. So we never use authenticity as an excuse to not grow. We use it as an impetus to grow into our highest conscious self. That's law number 4. Then law number 5 is the law of receptivity. And the law of receptivity simply says the key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving. This means nothing more than understanding that, yeah, you breathe out, you've also got to breathe in. Breathe out carbon dioxide, breathe in oxygen. Breathe out, which is giving, breathe in, which is receiving. Giving and receiving are not opposite concepts, despite the horribly negative anti-prosperity messages we receive from the world around us on a constant basis. No, giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin, and they work in tandem. But we know that the giving comes first. That needs to be the focus, right? It's a law of life when you think about it. We plant before we harvest. We sow before we reap. We give before we receive. So when you can focus on the giving, you've created the context for receiving. See, this is why John David Mann and I say that money is simply an echo of value. Money is an echo of value. It's the thunder to value's lightning, which really means that so long as the focus is on providing value to another human being, the money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided. But once that happens and the money starts to come to you, you've got to be able to gratefully receive it. And that's where some of those mental blocks come in. Because remember, again, the world gives us so many horrible, horrible messages of lack when it comes to money. All we hear about from, often from a combination of upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television shows, movies, where so many of the evil people are they're the rich people, right? And they're always stepping on and taking advantage of those who are nice and kind and thoughtful and poor. right? And honest. And, it's the messages we get. So I think it's very important that we study prosperity. And if you, and I'm not saying you do, but if you're someone who finds yourself kind of sometimes sabotaging yourself or resisting, what comes to you, make a study of prosperity. Study people like Randy Gage and Bob Proctor and Ellen Rogan and Sharon Lechter and Ken Honda and all these people who just go deep into prosperity thinking and get those good messages into your mind. And 99% of what they talk about, okay, isn't the how-to aspect. You already know how to do that. It's getting rid of those mental blocks that keep prosperity from you. And prosperity is your natural right. When you've provided immense value to the lives of others, you've earned the right, not the entitlement, the right to receive. But we need to be able to do so. I'd like to end this part, and we are going to have question and answer. So if you have any, please feel welcome to put them in the chat. I believe that Stephanie and Matt are going to kind of moderate and see, because I'm not really good at multitasking. So I'm not really good at looking at the chat. I can look at it and I have to look back right away. But I welcome any questions that you have. But I'd like to end with a very important lesson, something I learned, gosh, nearly 40 years ago. I'd been in sales for a couple of years. I've been doing well, but I moved and I'd been doing well after starting out not doing well because I had no sales training and the company I was first with didn't provide it. But I started to get books. I read Tom Hopkins and I read Zig Ziglar, and I started studying and listening to, this is how long ago it was, cassette tape albums, right? And I'd attend seminars and I did everything I could to learn sales. And again, I did really well for a couple of years, but then I went to another company, was selling a high-end product, and I was in a slump, and I was having trouble getting out of the slump. And the more I tried, the more of a slump I stayed in. And of course, the reason why was because rather than focusing on my customers, I was focusing on myself and doing anything I could to get out of this slump. And it was so counterproductive. And I was very fortunate because I came back to the office one day, and one of the people there, he was a much older guy. He was not in the sales department. I think he was an engineer, and he retired soon after. He was one of these guys who, we've all met them, right? He didn't say much, but whenever he did say something, it was always profound. And I think he saw me as Joe, who I would, with John David Mann, write about 25 years later in The Go-Giver. He saw me as that kind of young, up and coming, ambitious, aggressive salesperson who had great potential, but was totally focused in the wrong direction and not living up to that potential. And he said to me, Burg, he was definitely a last name kind of guy. He said, Burg, can I give you some advice? And I said, absolutely, please do. I need it. And he said, Burg, if you want to make a lot of money in sales, he said, don't have making money as your target. Your target is serving others. Now, when you hit the target, he said, you'll get a reward. And that reward will come in the form of money. And you can do with that money whatever you choose, but never forget, the money is simply the reward for hitting the target. It isn't the target itself. Your target is serving others. And that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me that great salesmanship is never about the salesperson. Great salesmanship is never about the products or services. It's not about the houses. As important as they are, it's not what it's about. Great salesmanship is about the other person. It's about that person whose life you're trying to add value to. Really, it's about that person whose life is better just because you are part of it. And I think that when we approach sales and business from that foundational premise, I think then we're really 9 steps ahead of the game in a 10-step game. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor, and I'd love to entertain any questions you have.
Thank you so much, Bob. That was great. And I'm glad you ended on that, because I think so many times in real estate, we are so focused on the transaction, that we forget that there's people and we deal with them at some of the most sensitive times in their life. You know, making a transaction and understanding the other person on the other side of that is so important. So you said you're a how-to guy, and I do see a question in here. I do want to address this question. What would be your very first book recommendation to help new agents jumpstart their career?
Wow, that is such a wonderful, wonderful question. And when it comes to books, I mean, I could take 10 hours just to talk about my favorite books and how much they've helped me. But I think it really starts with I think it starts with the people skills. And I think Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People is still one of the top books I would ever suggest. I think The Magic of Thinking Big by Dr. David Schwartz, wonderful book. I think, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, again, and you've all read those, we've all got those, but I think these are great books. One of my all-time favorites, pardon me for turning my back on you, is called Peace, Power, and Plenty by Orison Swett Marden. This was written in 1909. Mr. Marden is known by many as the founder of the personal development movement. He was actually the creator of Success Magazine, the original, the founder. And this book is just about, peace, power, and plenty. So he's talking about inner peace, which is, of course, what we all desire, right? Inner peace. Power. That's power over ourselves, right? It's being able to master and control our own emotions. It's able to gear ourselves to be as productive as we can. And then plenty, which is abundance. And this is, one of the original versions of the book. I wouldn't even write inside the book. I just made notes everywhere. But I mean, it was just what a wonderful book. So I would suggest that. And then, of course, there's so many great books out there today that can help you in terms of sales and marketing and so forth. So, but yeah, I mean, I would start out with some of those basic classics. As we know, really success is an inside job. We fill our minds and we fill our hearts with the great, helpful information, and then that success manifests itself outwardly.
Okay, so now we've all worked on value, we've worked on all the laws, and we're getting clients and they're liking us. So do you have a methodology on referrals?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. My first book written back in the 90s was Endless Referrals. So and one reason I love working a referral-based business is because, 4 basic reasons, even though there are more. Okay. First is referred prospects are simply easier to set the appointment with, right? You're going in on borrowed influence. Referred prospects, price is less of an issue. Doesn't mean it's a fee. It's not a non-commission, not a non-issue, but it's less of an issue because you're going in on borrowed influence, borrowed trust. So you're already there as an established professional. Third reason, it's simply easier to complete the transaction, whether that's the listing or the, what have you, bringing on a new client because of borrowed trust or what we call vicarious experience. In other words, while this person has never done business with you directly, someone who they know, like, and trust has said, this is the only realtor you need to speak to. They know their stuff. They're with a great company. They work as a team. They return your calls quickly. They make sure does it get better than that, right? And then, of course, with a referred prospect, the fourth benefit is that they're already of the mindset that that's how you do business because that's how they met you. So in their world, you meet your prospects through referral, you sell on high value rather than low price, you complete the transaction, and then you're referred to others. So let's look at how we might, with someone who is a client, let's say someone who's already a client, ask for referrals in such a way that we actually receive them. Okay. So let's say that you've just, you've successfully listed and sold a home for Ann Jones, and you would like to ask her for referrals. Now, sometimes, it's a little bit difficult for people who haven't really made asking for referrals a part of their business. It's difficult to ask because there's that feeling of rejection. What if that person doesn't want to give me referrals? What if they feel like I'm being needy? What if they feel, and none of when you create the system of asking for referrals, you actually come across more as a professional who understands that their value is so high that you're actually doing them a service by having them refer you to their friends and other people who they care about. So really, in the sense, it's a self-esteem issue. But let's make it easy to ask. The first thing we're going to do from Anne is we're going to attain her buy-in to the process itself. And to do this, I suggest utilizing what I call the referral bridge. What is a bridge? Well, in the physical world, a bridge is a structure that transports a person from one safe piece of land to another. In the referral world, a bridge is a phrase that does the same thing, transports you from one safe piece of land, the know, like, and trust relationship, to another safe piece of land where you can ask for the referrals in a way that both you and your referral source feels very comfortable. That's so key. So here's the language I use. You'll make it a little different based on your style and personality, but I'm going to explain why the principle itself works. Okay. So it would be like this. And as more and more of my business is now through referrals, I find it helpful to partner with my clients and friends such as you. Can we take a few quick minutes and run past the names of some other people I might also be able to help? Okay, so and as more and more of my business now comes through referrals and introductions, I find it's helpful to partner with my clients and friends such as you. Can we take a few quick minutes and run past the names of some other people I might also be able to help? Now, if your business hasn't really been growing yet with referrals and you don't feel comfortable saying that, you could always start out with the first part of it being, as I'm expanding my referral business, or I'm in the process of expanding my referral business, and I find it's helpful to partner with. Okay, so whichever way you feel comfortable saying it. Okay, so let's go through that little by line by line. And when you say either I'm expanding my referral business, or as more and more of my business is now through referrals and introductions, what you're doing is you're signaling to her that this is what you're going to be talking about. Because again, you just want to make the process very comfortable for everyone. And then you'd say, I find it's helpful to partner with my clients and friends such as you. Partner is a very powerful word because you're giving this person who knows, likes, and trusts you, you're giving her part of your success. You're helping her buy in to your mission. Now, the next part's very important, the wording. Can we take a few quick minutes and run past the names of? Now, this is what I call fast language or quick language. You're not saying it fast or saying it quickly, but the words you're using imply correctly that you're not going to take up a lot of her time. Okay, so listen to these fast words or quick words. Can we take a few quick minutes and run past, and then the names of some other people I might also be able to help? Now, why did I say might? Don't I have the confidence to know I can help everyone? Sure, but we also know that not everyone's going to want your help. And what we want to make sure to communicate to Anne is that she never has to worry or be concerned that we're going to make her look bad by, continuing to try to, to oversell or to, to keep selling when someone just is not interested. We're always making sure that we're communicating that there's an out or back door. Okay. So going through that one more time. And as I'm in the process, or as I continue to expand my referral business or my business through referrals and introductions, I find it's helpful to partner with my clients and friends such as you. Can we take a few quick minutes and run past the names of some other people I might also be able to help? Now, by the way, there's no reason that you can't ask someone for referrals, even if they're not doing business with you yet. Not everybody needs to sell or buy a home. Okay. But as long as they know, like, and trust you, you can still ask for referrals. You would just say, instead of my clients and friends, you just say with my friends, partner with my friends such as you. And you'd say, can we, and then you say, instead of other people, I might also be able to help. You would just say people I might, instead of might also be able to just say other people I might be able to help. Same thing. Okay. Same message. Now, if when you ask that question, she reflexively starts to say, sure, I'd love to, but I don't know if I, know anyone. So that's okay. Let her say that. Have no expression on your face other than a loving expression, of course, but but don't be defensive. Don't interrupt her. Let her finish saying that. And then all you're going to do is say, oh, that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple of very easy ways to think of some really good people. And if you do, great. If not, that's okay too. We can always revisit another time. Again, you're making sure she feels very comfortable with the process, that she doesn't feel defensive, and you're giving her that out or back door to know that there's no pressure. Remember, and this is, I call this Burg's law of the out or back door. The bigger the out or back door you give someone to take, the less they feel the need to take it. Okay. So she says, okay, well, sure, that's fine. So now the biggest challenge that people have when asking is they'll say, so Anne, who do you know, or do you know anyone who? And Anne will think about it, and she'll think about it, and you can tell she's really concentrating. But finally she says, well, I can't think of anybody right now, but when I do, I'll call you or I'll let you know. And we know that's probably not going to happen. I mean, it does once in a blue moon, but that's not how we want to build a referral business. And it's really not her fault when she says this. Tom Hopkins, I learned that from Tom Hopkins in that original book of his I read like 40 years ago. And his book was How to Master the Art of Selling. And he only devoted about a half page to this, but it was absolute brilliance and absolute gold. And what he said was, when we ask people, who do you know, or do you know anyone who? Well, we all know a couple of hundred people, directly or indirectly, 250, 300 people, what have you. So when we say, do you know anyone who, or who do you know, a collage of hundreds of people go dancing past their head, but they can't see anyone. They can't identify anyone, right? So they're thinking, and because they want to come through for you. But you know how the memory works. The more pressure we put on ourselves, the less we're going to be able. Then finally, they just say, well, I can't think of anybody right now, but blah, blah, blah. So let's take Tom's advice, or as I call him, Mr. Hopkins. And he's such a great guy. And let's ask in a way that we create a context for them to be able to succeed. And here's how he taught. He taught to funnel down people's worlds into small groups they can easily identify. So let's run through an exercise here. You know Anne well enough to know that she's an avid golfer. And so you say, Anne, I know you like to golf. She says, oh, love to golf. I'm out there every Sunday on the links. Absolutely. And you say, do you golf with different people every time, or sort of the same? Oh, no, same foursome every time. Harriet Brown, Michael Cloud, Dr. Mary Ruart, the four of us, we have been golfing buddies for years. Boom. She's just now identified and named 3 people. So you might say, has Harriet or Michael or Dr. Mary mentioned anything about making a move? Or, you could, and if no, by the way, it could be, do you think they would be open to hearing from me with your recommendation in case something came up in the future? However you want to say it, that's fine. But the fact is, she was able to identify 3 people, and maybe it will be all of them, none of them, one of them. It doesn't matter. You've created victory for her. She now knows she can come up with names. Let's move on to another funnel, another frame. She's a member of her local chapter of NABO, National Association of Women Business Owners. They meet once a month. Now, you're not going to say, do you know anyone in NABO who? You're going to say, is there anyone in your NABO chapter who you're particularly good friends with, or you sit next to every time, or you serve on a committee with, right? We want to bring it real. And now she thinks of 2 people. Well, with either of those. Now, we also know she's the chair of the board of her local animal shelter. So we say, how many people serve on the board with you? And she says, well, there's 5 of us all together, myself and 4 other board members. Well, 4 is a good number. So we might say, and picture those 4 in your mind, one at a time. Which of them, if any, do you remember? If any, we're going to always give the out or back door whenever we can. Which of them, if any, has mentioned either making a move, or there's been a graduation, or there's been this, or that, something that helps identify? Do you feel might be open to, or what have you? Again, however you want to ask the question. But what you've done again is you've given her that opportunity to win. She's coming in. Now, we also know that once she comes up with that first name, now it gets easier. Now the names kind of trickle out and then they stream out. They can even gush up because one person reminds her of someone else, reminds her of someone else, reminds her of someone else. Now you can go to, ask about people she works with, maybe her neighbors. You can ask her about, who she graduated college with that she's still in touch with. Again, it depends on the relationship. It depends on timing. It depends on many things. But that's how we ask for referrals in a way that we greatly increase the chances that people are going to be able to actually come up with names. Does that make sense? Stephanie,
and I'm on mute.
Those are weren't those the 3 words of 2020 or
I
something?
know, I know.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a book for several people. So, no, but that's awesome. That's great. And thank you for walking us through that. We did have a question. Somebody asked quickly for a list of each law.
Sure. The laws themselves are the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. And the elements of value within the law of value are excellence, consistency, attention, empathy, and appreciation.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
All right. So we are at the top of the hour. And always at the end of my coffee talks, I ask my guest if they had a magic wand and anything they could wish for. But I'm going to ask you, do you have a message for our members? Your wish or a message that you have for us?
I think it goes back into something that we call the law of left field. And the law of left field is not a 6th law. It's not its own law. It's actually a mini law or sub law within the law of receptivity. And the law of left field, Stephanie says, the greatest gifts will come to you at moments and from places you least expect. Now, how does that really work, though? What does that mean? Okay. Well, when living life and conducting business according to these principles, all sorts of value showers down upon you from that unnoticed, unseen place. Examples. You receive a great referral. Somebody calls you. They say they were told about you. They want you to list their home. And when they tell you where they live, this is a luxury property, right? And they say, we're not seeing anyone else. We'd like you to come over tonight and take the listing. Really? And they say, the person said, you're the only one we need to see, that you're amazing, that you're this, or right? But here's the thing. When they tell you who referred you to them, you don't recognize the name. Where did that come from? Right? Or you're at an event somewhere and you're about to leave. And before you do, there's somebody there who you've met before, you know them on a surface level, not well, but they stop you from leaving. They say, hey, come back in for a second. I want to introduce you to someone. And they say, this is Laura Smith. Laura is the incoming human resources director for the local big company that's located in your, and Laura just came in and she needs a new home. And apparently they're going to be transferring a lot of people in here. And I just told her, as you were walking out, I've heard so many great things about you. So you meet Laura and you end up helping her own a home and you become the realtor of choice for this company. How did that happen? You didn't even know this person other than an introduction. And he or she just, or just some incalculably valuable thing drops into your lap, but not from the people or places you might have expected or maybe even hoped. You may have even said to yourself, wow, that came right out of left field. Well, when living with a giving spirit, which again simply means focused on creating immense value for others, great value comes to you suddenly and unexpectedly, and in amounts far greater than what anyone owes you. But here's the thing, and we sort of talked about this a little bit earlier. There's nothing magical or mystical about this, right? You see, by now, you've created such goodwill, such great will for so many that you've planted, what you've done is you've planted so many seeds of great will that so many people want to be part of your life. They know you, they like you, they trust you, they want to talk about you, they want to see you do well. In other words, The world has now become what we call a benevolent context for your success. And while you can't necessarily see its operation, there is indeed cause and effect. The cause is giving, the effect receiving. Well, you can tap into this law within a greater law for the rest of your life to achieve stratospheric success. How? Fairly simple. Find more, better, creative ways to give more in value than you take in payment. Touch the lives of more and more people with the exceptional value you provide. Continue to increase and expand your influence through your willingness to place other people's interests first. Stay congruent with your true, authentic core, and realize, understand, and embrace that just like breathing out and breathing in, giving and receiving are simply two sides of the very same coin and work in tandem. Focus on the giving and allow the receiving, and you will receive. You'll receive in abundance. You'll receive an abundance of kindness, an abundance of friendship, an abundance of money, an abundance of love, an abundance of referrals, an abundance of new business, often from right in front of you, and other times from way out of left field, seemingly out of nowhere, but in reality, out of everywhere.
That is awesome. That is lovely. And what a great way to end our coffee talk.
Thank you so much for having me with you. Again, congratulations on a wonderful year as president, and congratulations to all of you for a wonderful year collectively.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Matt, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, so Bob, before you get out of Dodge here, we just want to say thank you very much dealing with Christina from your team, practicing what has been preached here today with the note, handwritten note, and which Christina and I had a conversation, and it kind of sparked a little something inside of me. I used to be really good at writing handwritten notes on these note cards, and got away from it, particularly in the last 2 years with the pandemic.
Yeah.
And it's something I definitely need to get back to, because it's something that it provides value both ways. It feels really good to write the card. It takes a little bit of time. You have to give it a little bit of thought, even if your handwriting penship is not. Well, Sister Mary Frances would want at St. William's grade school where I went. It means something. And when the person gets that note, it also, you know that they realize that it took some time to write that note. It took some time to drop it into the mailbox and all those things. So, and also to remember, it always feels good to get a little piece of mail, doesn't it? Like, not like a bill, not, you know, the package has changed. That used to be a big deal. That's not a big deal anymore, but a handwritten note, holy smokes. What a cool thing that we should get more back into our repertoire of life. So Bob, thank you very much. Great to see how you guys not only put these words and messages out there, but you also live them in the way you conduct your business. So that's awesome stuff. Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And folks, so we dropped in the chat all those links that Bob mentioned. So please make sure you check out those three links that we put in there with the videos, the note card, and the questions to ask. With that, we're right at 9:58. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break before we get into our next session. So you got to run to the little ladies' room. You got to top off your coffee, whatever it takes. Now is the time to do that. So you're on the clock. 2-minute warning for that. Again, thank you, Bob. And we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.